When College Football 25 comes out in July, many of us will head straight into a Road to Glory session, which is why today I brought to you 10 of the best schools to go to when you're playing Road to Glory, more specifically when you're playing quarterback. So let's get straight into it, and just keep in mind this is in no order whatsoever. Real quick before we start, I want to shout out Wave Flight Simulations for giving me this video idea, and if you guys have any recommendations, please comment them down below because I'll likely see them. First up, I have Alabama because I know they got to the college football playoff last year, but they kind of struggled with quarterback play, and especially after Saban left, basically half their roster left, and the people that did stay on Alabama are kind of bummed. So you have the opportunity to commit there and kind of get that program back on track because they are SEC and they obviously are one of the most prestigious programs across the whole entire country, and you can be that kind of shining star that gets other people to come and bring some of that prestige back. Obviously, we have no idea how they're going to do this season because so many of their good players left, like Caleb Downs and some other people. Second on this list, I have Kennesaw State, and I mentioned them in a previous video, basically because this is their first year in D1 FBS football. They're going to be horrible. The people on your team, your wide receivers, running backs, defense are all going to be horrible. You're not playing against the best teams, obviously, in the country, so it's not going to be that big of a deal. But it gives you a chance to give Kennesaw State some prestige and get them rolling in D1 football, because obviously without a good player, they're going to be horrible. So especially if you're a 4 or 5 star and you have offers from like Ohio State and you decide to commit there, that'd be crazy. But I could see it being a lot of fun. So I do suggest that you try this challenge out. Completely shifting gears from Kennesaw State, we have Ohio State third on this list, and for two main reasons. The first one being their wide receiving core is very, very good year in and year out, so you won't have to have trouble with that. You'll have some of the top wide receiver talent to throw to in the whole entire country. Second off, the quarterback competition is going to be very, very good, and you'll have to be the best out of however many there are. Obviously, we don't know how the position battles are going to work in the upcoming game. We'll probably see that pretty soon, but you have to be the best no matter how it works. You have to outwork everyone else and be the most, have the highest overall, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I think that'll be a fun element to it, is that you won't be guaranteed the starting spot. It'll probably be one of the best places to go if you're a good quarterback, but there will be obviously a lot of other competition. Iowa is fourth on the list, and you could have probably guessed why it is on the list, just because obviously their offense is always being made fun of for being horrible, and they don't get any points or yards throughout the game. Their scores ended up being 3-2. So this would obviously just be fun to try to prove that wrong, in your little Road to Glory world. If you want to, come to Iowa and drop 50 points a game, then that's a good challenge, because obviously they're not structured for that because they have just a horrible offense. So I definitely think this would be more of a challenge one than more of just a fun one where you just go and play football. If you want to go to Iowa as a quarterback, you have a lot of work to do, because you got to completely turn that offensive program around and make sure that you're actually scoring a lot of points game in and game out, especially when you play good teams like Ohio State and Michigan and even Wisconsin. Obviously, Georgia was going to be on this list because if you are a 5-star, you're probably going to go to the best team in all of college football. If not, maybe they're the second, I don't know, but they're probably the best team in the whole entire country. So if you're a 5-star, number 1 overall recruit, go to Georgia, because you're going to get the best playing time. You're going to have the best surrounding teammates so that you can, win championships without having to worry about your defense giving up all kinds of points. So I definitely think Georgia would be more of a realistic one and fun one to try to emulate, being that number 1 overall recruit in the whole entire country. Or you could go to Ohio State, like I mentioned before, but I definitely think Georgia has a really good defense, really good offense, and is kind of very well balanced. And you also play in the SEC, so you get to play some of the other great teams, whereas the Big Ten isn't as strong in that regard. Halfway through the list is Liberty. Obviously, they already have a very, very strong foundation, being basically undefeated, or they were until Oregon, obviously, last year, but they already have a really good team. They're not in the best conference, obviously, so you're going to have to kind of work with that, especially when you're playing against weaker opponents, so you're not going to be as ranked as high and all that kind of good stuff that comes with it. But Liberty is kind of a fun kind of wild card school to go to. It's not really one that people would think of committing to when you have offers from like Indiana and stuff, and places in the Big Ten and SEC, but I do think that it would be another wrinkle to your road to glory save if you played for Liberty, and maybe even, you know, break the stigma and join a different conference, win the national championship, whatever you want to do. I think Liberty is a very good, you know, starting school for someone who isn't as good as the game, because you're not playing good people and you already have a good team. At least I think they're gonna have a good team this year. I'm not a Liberty fan, obviously, so I don't know how good they're actually gonna be, but I don't think they're gonna, you know, fall on their face. So I do think that Liberty would be a very, very fun place to go for kind of a novice player. Similar to Kennesaw State, Kent State is up just because they were horrible last year. They went 1-11, and they really don't have the excuse that Kennesaw State does, that it's their first year in D1. So if you go to Kent State, you have to turn that program around really fast. So I would suggest, even if you have better offers, Kent State would be somewhere fun to go, because it kind of almost be like a rebuild, except only you have control of the quarterback and everything around you, you know, just falls into place. So you can do only what you can do as a player. So I think Kent State would be a very, very fun rebuild type of school where you can go. It's pretty hard to get worse than you are unless you're 0-12 next year. So I think Road to Glory as a quarterback at Kent State would be kind of fun and something different, as opposed to, you know, going to just the big name schools when you're a good player. Texas moving to the SEC is a prime opportunity for you to come in as a quarterback recruit and, you know, dominate the SEC. If you're a good player, you can take Texas wherever you want to go. They already have a good enough cast, good enough teammates, good enough players, coaches, you know, fans, whatever it is, that you can build them up. And obviously they're in the Big 12, which is a step below the SEC, but once they join the SEC this fall, you can go there and kind of just go crazy. So I definitely think that Texas would be a very fun road to glory for really any player level. If you're very skilled at the game, it's good for you. If you're bad at the game, it can still help because the defense is good. So I would suggest going to Texas, and now that I think about it, that'll be probably one of the top places I want to go, just because of the versatility it has and the amount of opportunities you have to kind of win championships, win the SEC, and you'll probably even get to play against Alabama and Georgia throughout the season, as well as some other good teams. So I definitely would recommend going to Texas when you start up your road to glory. Army will be fun because it's a lot of, you know, option and triple option and all that kind of stuff. You don't really throw the ball that much, which is very something different, because obviously you could do a running back road to glory, but that kind of gets old. I think a quarterback with the Army would be fun because of the reading you have to do. You constantly have to stay engaged with whatever you're playing, whatever team. So I definitely think Army could be, you know, a kind of wild card team that you would go to if you're a scrambling type quarterback. Obviously, if you make a pocket passer archetype for road to glory, you're not going to go to Army because you're going to be a horrible fit. You probably won't even get recruited. So I definitely think, you know, scrambling quarterbacks, going to Army, you get your name out there for the Heisman if you do all kinds of running yards, which is very possible. 10th on the list is Auburn, and I've mentioned it before because I really think Auburn is kind of one of those programs that's just waiting to be built up. I think I mentioned it in my Dynasty video, because Auburn is in the SEC. You get to play against Alabama. You have these opportunities every single year. I almost compare it to Indiana because they could be good, it's just they're not. And anyone can go in and turn that program around, and it could be you in College Football 25. So I definitely think a quarterback going there that's really good, I think that, you know, you could turn it around. So that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you watched this long, but thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.